bright on Friday
District
night.
play is
Small
almost
Texas
here
town.
completely. And we're here to talk some Central Texas football, and it's going to be a fun one. This is brought to you by Ranch Masters, Ranch and Home Realty in Lake Whitney. Go to ranchmasters.com. We appreciate them for being the sponsor here this year. I'm bringing on Kenny Heath. Oh, I forgot to change my thing. So pull back the curtain, as I always like to say. We usually record Sideline to Sideline on Tuesdays, and you and I try to do this on Wednesdays. Sideline to Sideline got pushed to tonight, so I've literally been talking football on this Wednesday since 4 o'clock, and it's now like almost 10 p.m. So I apologize for not getting the S2S. I think I can do that while we're talking, but I'm more ready to talk a little Central Texas football. How you doing, first off, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. How about you've had a long day, so we're gonna kind of roll through this one pretty quick. But I'm doing good, man. Ready to talk some football.
Yeah, I say that. Hang on. I'm doing this on the fly too. I'm putting my name in so I can get that right. I say we'll go through it quick, but man, when we start talking this area, I noticed the other night you and we went like 45 minutes and we talked like 4 games because we were getting in depth on it. I do want to start off though, and you make the run sheets, and I really appreciate that. It helps me, and I had mentally put this in the mind after the game because I'd seen what happened. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then when I saw the run sheet this week, I was so happy. Italy beats Rio Vista, 20-14. Yep. Not a big deal. Not a big score. Rio Vista basically kind of controlled this game. The problem was they couldn't put away Italy when they needed to, including a Alabama versus Auburn style kick six, as Rio Vista was going for a field goal, and Italy catches it before it goes out of line. It goes up under the thing and returns it 100 yards for the touchdown. And Italy pulls out an improbable win in a game that they were getting close to, on paper, being upset. Italy came into the game 4-1, 1-0 in district. This was Rio Vista's first district game, but holy crud, how crazy was that?
That was crazy. And I first saw that play on Twitter, and some random, I don't know who it is, but it wasn't affiliated with each school. And it says kick six to win the game. And I didn't even know who it was. I just watched it. And then when the guy got close to the end zone, I started seeing Rio jerseys and Italy jerseys. I was like, what the heck? That's Rio and Italy. So crazy way to end the game. I hate it for Rio. Looks like they played a heck of a game, but that's just the way it goes sometimes.
And I do want to point out, to make sure people might not know Auburn, Alabama, it was the last play of the game.
Yeah.
They were trying to kick a 35-yard field goal. The crazy thing is Jared Wood for Italy, he had an 80-yard run. He's also their starting quarterback. 80-yard run, a 53-yard run, and a 100. And technically, I guess the ball must have I didn't see I only saw from the point where he's coming out of the end zone. So I guess the ball was very well short if it was only 100 yards.
Yeah.
But that man, in 3 carries or 3 returns, 3 offensive special teams play over 250 yards. That's why I love small town football, because you get the starting quarterback to go out there and try to do that. But more importantly, man, really important win for Italy. They're 2-0 in district. Axtell's the only other 2-0 team, and we'll talk about them here in a minute. Everybody else at least has a loss. And now Itasca, they're 1-0. They had a bye last week. So, this is a game that you easily could have lost. And you can make the case that they possibly should have lost. But that's a sign of a good team, because you're going to get 2 games like this every year if you're a really good team, that you just kind of sleepwalk your way through. The other team's fired up, whatever the case may be. And for the Gladiators, who they have this week off, and then do they have Axtell? No, Rio Vista has Axtell this week. Does Italy have Axtell? I think they have them in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
they do. So they get the bye this week. You can heal up, get right with ball, and then you're going to go into that big showdown with Axtell. And you got to see Axtell this week. We talked about the one thing we're worried about them is when they play a good offense, what's going to happen. Well, at least for this week, they're just going to outscore them. That's all. They're just going to outscore them. Really good win for them as well.
Yeah. So the Rio Italy game was 15 miles down the road from my house, and I went to Valley Mills, about 45 miles down the road.
That's why we have you on the show. Your
Yeah.
smart decisions.
And man, yeah, I was there. Axel's really explosive offensively. Colin Horn can score. I mean, he took a little wide receiver screen. It's 4th and forever, or no, 3rd and like 19. Took they're on the 5-yard line. Took a wide receiver screen 95 yards to the house. Just went through some traffic and was gone. He can return kicks. I think he had over 200 yards receiving. They've got weapons. You know, Arlett, Tyson Michelle's a really good running back. Their backup quarterback, AJ Fetch, played well. Had 2 picks. One was kind of a miscommunication. The other one was at the end of the half, just going for a score in the end zone. And then you look at Valley Mills, kind of, you know, the way they've been going this year, just really not that impressive, but they've got a good little quarterback. They got a big running back in Jayshon Johnson, who played really well. He's just a handful to take down. I thought, you know, Coach Horn talks about his offensive, defensive lines are just really small, but I thought that Axtell did a good job in protecting their quarter, giving him enough room to make plays, and he can make plays with his legs. So fun game. Good game. I thought Axtell at half was just going to put it away starting the 3rd quarter, but I think Valley Mills scored 14 unanswered real quick, and it became a ball game again really quick.
You know, you talk about it, Valley Mills on the year 1-5, but I mean, they've been competitive in some of these games. Now, for Axtell, let's also not forget this is a revenge game.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Valley Mills pulled the upset off last year in the first round of the playoffs. So I think, yeah, was it first or second round?
First round, it was 10-1.
Yeah,
was 10-1
Axtell, you know, they thought last year was their coming out party, and it was until that game. And so, you know, there was a little bit of, you know, it doesn't completely wipe away that pain, but at least you get a little bit of a revenge. But more importantly, again, talking 7-2A Division I, you get that 2-0 run in district. You've got Rio Vista this week, and as we talked about, we got Italy. So that's the recap. But before we get to the previews, you wanted to give the Matt Stepp question of the week.
Yeah, so our Matt Stepp question of the week is District 5 and 3AD1 is shaping up to be ultra competitive district. Seemingly every game played each week will have more than likely have playoff implications. And how do you have this district shaken out? Does your projections today different from the start of the season? And he's like, it's absolutely turning out to be a heck of a district with quality depth. There may not be a real regional contender, but the next 5 weeks will be a ton of fun. Preseason, he had Grandview, West, Whitney, Mahia. And his first pass at playoff projections, he's got Whitney, Grandview, Groesbeck, West. But he thinks Mahia and Maypearl will 100% be in the mix, and I agree with him. I think it's a toss-up, really. It's just hard to tell.
Oh, no, 100%. And this was one of our top 5 toughest districts in 3A on our toughest district show in the offseason. And I agree with him. He talked about, like, I don't know. I think the region threat is not as strong as we thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year. Grandview definitely, and you know, give you credit and a couple other people. They all reached out to me and was like, look, Grandview's still good, but this isn't, you know, people are kind of I don't want to say overrating Grandview because they're young, but I think people were expecting them to mature a little bit quicker than maybe they have. You know, Whitney 4-1, but they're dealing with injuries that could impact them going forward. West is West. I mean, sometimes they're 3-2 going into district, sometimes they're 2-3, and then you look up and they're going to be in first, second, or third.
Mm-hmm.
Groesbeck, I think you and I just said this the last show we did. Like, you know, we feel that this might be Jerry Bomar's best Groesbeck team, but what does that mean necessarily? And then you've got the Mahias and the Maypearls. And, you know, Mahia started out the year losing to Palestine Westwood. No shame in that. Then they beat Fairfield, and then they've lost 2 in a row before bouncing back last week against, it's now obvious, a very down Cameron Yo. It's funny because maybe the most important district game of the first week isn't Grandview and Whitney, because I think both of them make the playoffs no matter who wins that game. I think the most important district game to start district play is Maypearl versus West and Mahia versus Groesbeck, because you're going to get separation out of those 4 teams who, in my opinion, are playing for the last 2 playoff spots.
Yeah, I agree. And you don't want to take that first loss because it's going to take forever to catch back up. You're going to have to beat some really good teams to climb yourself back in the playoffs. And yeah, all both those games. Let's see, what do we got? Whitney, Grandview, West, Maypearl, Mahia, Groesbeck. Yeah, I think they're all going to be really good games.
And there's not going to be a bad game in this district. There's going to be a team that's going to go into the last week of the season needing a win to get into the playoffs. And they're going to play a team that might be already knocked out of the playoffs, though I could legitimately see this district being one of those where every team has a shot on that last week. But even if they don't, if you get a team that's mad and they're still playing and they're not giving up, they could beat a team and knock them out of the playoff race. That's how deep this district is inside this district. Again, in this region, I don't know what that means, but sometimes it's just fun to have the tough districts. It doesn't, we get caught up on the state show of playoffs and who's going to be the better team in December, and that matters. But sometimes it's also just fun to watch a district beat up on each other, week out.
Fights. Yeah, and that region's kind of tougher maybe than you might have thought. Grandview was going to be in contention to be in the finals, but Malakoff's going to be there. But now you got a really good Tatum team, Liberty Ilo, Jefferson, some other dudes sneaking in there. So it should be a competitive region. I think Malakoff's by far still the favorite, but be some good district battles in this district and that Jefferson Tatum district, and some by-district and area playoff games are going to be fun.
I mean, just to we've talked a little bit about Jefferson on here because we were just kind of talking that region. But tell you what, Liberty Ilo, Brad Willard, the head coach from Mount Vernon that went to be an offensive coordinator, and now he's back in the 3A world. Mm-hmm. He's got Liberty Ilo ahead of schedule. They look really good, dude. Like, they look scary good. The thing that makes it hard to say, oh, well, them or Jefferson or Tatum or anybody in District 5 or anybody in District 6 with Pottsboro. Let's not forget friggin' Pottsboro. But it's still really, really hard to go, they'll beat Malakoff. Yeah. That's where everything ends right now in this region, in my opinion. Now, that doesn't mean somebody doesn't beat them. Malakoff is still Malakoff. They don't have quite as much depth as last year. I think they have a little bit more O-line issues compared to last year. But at the end of the day, man, if they stay healthy, I just don't see anybody in this region beating them.
I don't either. I think it's theirs. About as sure as any region in the in the state. I think I'd put money on Malakoff to get that one.
Yeah, and now after they get out of the region, then it's going to be fun because you've got the Franklin, Hitchcock, Columbus winner waiting on you. Bushland, I'm still very impressed with what Bushland did when I saw them and what they've done since then. 3A Division I, dude, it lost Brock and it opened up the West, but you still got those Region 3 and then Malakoff Region 2 powers. It's going to be fun, definitely, for sure. But talking about district play and all that, 12 4A Division 2, they get started this week. And, man, this is another one that you look – I mean, your two statistically worst teams are China Spring and Lorena. And go look at who both of those teams have played. Now, I've seen China Spring. I saw them against Springtown, and they're still China Spring, but they're definitely 3 steps below where their back-to-back state championship 4A team was and all that. But they're still China Spring. Lorena's just one of those that right now it feels like they're missing a playmaker. Like, whenever they need – their defense has been fine. They gave up 34 to Malakoff, 42 to Franklin. Those are 2 great teams. Mm-hmm. But then only gave up 24 to Lampasas, who has a really good offense. But the problem is offensively for Lorena, they've only scored 26 once. It was against Cameron Yo. Everybody else, they've been held to 21 and under. And that's kind of been what's held the Leopards back the last couple of years, is they haven't quite had that explosive offense that they use through the running game. And so dare I say that Robinson is a slight favorite in this game?
I think so, just because of Robinson's offense. They can score some points quick. And I watched most of that Lampasas Lorena game, and I agree with you on the offense. It just seemed sluggish. Couldn't get anything going offensive-wise. They would put a drive together, shoot themselves in the foot. Blanchett took over at quarterback. He doesn't – I mean, they throw the ball a little bit, but he's got 450 yards rushing. He scored 9 touchdowns. So he's more of a running type quarterback. He can sling it too. And then Caleb Corrales is their kind of playmaker that you thought would be not Braylon Henry type, but a guy that kind of break the game open a little bit, and just not seeing that. And yeah, I'm with. I think Robinson's the favorite, and I got them winning. You know, Bryce McCurdy's can spin it 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. Marino, the running back, had his kind of breakout party against Glen Rose with all those yards, and he against Hillsborough he did the same thing, rushed for over 200 yards. So, yeah, I think Robinson. I'm going to have to give them the edge in that one.
Yeah, I agree. You've also got Conley and China Spring. This is gonna kind of start. This is one of those games that'll create some separation. You know, again, China Spring has struggled this year by record, 1-4. But you go and look, and they lost to Franklin. They beat Bastrop. They lost to Waco University, Springtown, and Brownwood. Brownwood's all of a sudden just had this offensive resurgence out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Couldn't score for 3 weeks, and then in back-to-back weeks, they're dropping 30 and 40 points against solid defenses as well.
Yeah.
Again, Grant and I got into a little argument about that with Ingleside because Ingleside's not great, but still, Brownwood went from not being able to score to scoring 37 and 50. Something has changed there. But in saying that, China Springs lost 3 in a row. I'd love to know the last time they've lost 3 in a row. They're playing a Conley team that, man, boy, that Shine sure did look good after week 3. Had 3 solid wins. Of course, Little River Academy, they're running back transferring. You know, we didn't realize how much that would affect them. But then they beat a solid Laga Vista team, and then they beat Grandview, and then they lose to Alvarado. And you go, that's okay. Look at what Alvarado did to Glen Rose. And then they lose to Athens. Now, I want to say this. Athens is 4-1 this year. Athens is way better. Athens has Zach Harrell. He's the Harrell family name, Graham Harrell and all that. He's part of that family tree, and he's slowly turning them around. But I still would think that a Conley team that keeps wanting to be the Conley team we all think they could be, they should have, if not won that game, at least not lost it by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and it seems like they've got the pieces. Jamarian Vincent's a great athlete. You can run the ball, can throw it. I think they found their running back in Braden Ford. He's rushed for 558 and 6 touchdowns. And I watched a little bit of that one on NFHS. Seems like they just couldn't put it together. And you look that, still think it's probably going to come down to them and La Vega for the district championship. I think give the edge to La Vega, but yeah, kind of surprised of that. I don't know much about Athens. I focus on the Central Texas area, but I kind of thought they would get the W there.
You know, again, I think Athens at the end of the year, it won't look as big of a deal. They have a really good quarterback, David Richardson. He's really big. They have a really solid running back in Jace Warren. But it just feels like, again, this is a game that if Conley would ever put it together. And I had somebody ask me because Conley's been one of those teams that's been a thorn in our side, because you could just, whenever you think they're down, they're up, and whenever you think they're up, they're down. And they were like, are y'all saying that it's coaching? And no, I think Terry Garrick does a wonderful job at Conley. I think it's just one of those towns that, for whatever reason, they have really good football players. They don't always have depth, but they just don't put it together enough when they need to. I mean, you think of 2019, man, I remember, man, that was the year that they were going to roll. And then they get unfortunate and they get Gilmer in the 3rd round. And Gilmer was Gilmer that year. That's one of the years Gilmer went to state. Now, Carthage beat the doors off them in that state game. That's the year that Gilmer jumped out 14-0 on Carthage. They were like, oh no, here comes an upset. Yeah, 77-21 later. But you just don't ever know with them. I will say this. I disagree with you. I'm all in on it. I think Robinson might end up pulling this district out. Them or La Vega.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't
hate
it. I think there's a very good chance that Coach Lancaster's squad can do that. And I think it starts with, I think they beat Lorena, and I think Conley will beat China Spring. And then you roll into La Vega, Gatesville. Gatesville's got a really good running back in Rayshawn Smith. I think La Vega's better against the pass because they've had, like, Wilkerson rolled up a bunch of yards on them at Stephenville. So I look for Rayshawn Smith to have a big game, but I still think La Vega probably takes that one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm trying to look at the other ones. Conley, you're right. La Vega, you're right. I know, Gatesville, again, 3-2. The Hornets, they're not quite the same head scratch as Conley, but Gatesville does seem like they leave wins on the field every few years. I mean, I'm not talking about 6 years ago when they were 0-10, but when you look at their two losses, and I know Glen Rose has all of a sudden defensively have an issue, but they held Glen Rose with a healthy Canyon Evans to 28 points. That's impressive. They lost 28-12, but that's impressive. And then they lost to Burnett 23-17, and the Bulldogs are not bad. The Burnett Bulldogs were really solid. In fact, they had Laga Vista beat a couple weeks ago, and Laga Vista kind of pulled it out in the third and fourth quarter. But again, Gatesville's one of those teams. It wouldn't shock. I think La Vega handles them, but it wouldn't shock me if it's a one-score game. And I don't think any of us would have said that at the beginning of the year that Gatesville would play within one of La Vega.
Yeah. La Vega's defense, and I've heard you say it before, so it's not the same defense that we've seen in years past when they were winning state championships and going and making deep runs. So, but yeah, I think La Vega has this one.
All right, where are we going next?
How about Marlin and Groesbeck?
The Goats and the Black Cats, two of the best mascots there are. Please don't be a Bulldog when you start. Don't be a Bulldog. And for God's sakes, folks, when you're naming your new schools, stop with the Centennials and the Legacies. We've got too many of them across the states.
Absolutely.
Let's go back to naming our high schools after people. There's a reason why, though. Everybody's afraid to, and I get it. You're afraid to name a school after somebody, and in 30 years, they're Jeff Epstein or they're
you're going to find that skeleton in the closet.
Yeah, find that. Or like with P. Diddy, the skeletons just kind of fall out, sliding across the baby oil floor. You know what? We talked a little bit about it earlier. Mahia, Groesbeck. This is a game that divides the district. This is a game where you start to figure out at least who has the first step forward. And also sometimes it's a game that you need to win because you're not going to win a couple games. Smart coaches will tell you who they can and can't beat in a district. And for Groesbeck, going back to what we said about this district, though, I don't feel there's any team that doesn't feel they can't beat the other team in this district this week or this year with how the season is going. So we're saying all that, but I legitimately feel that Groesbeck, Mahia, Maypearl, West, Whitney, and Grandview all feel like, hey, if we play our game and we do things right, we will win the games and we will win the districts. It goes back to what we said before. We both said this in the preview. No team goes unscathed in this district. In fact, I would make the case that the district champ might have 2 losses this year, Kenny.
Yeah, and we in Coach Haynes' show, I asked him about the tiebreaker, and he said, "Well, I need to brush up on that. I don't really know what the tiebreaker is for the district, but he doesn't expect the tie. I mean, he thinks if they go out there and play their game, they're going to win it. But I really like Groesbeck. I mean, Trent Platt's third-year starter. True type of dual threat quarterback, thrown for over 1,000 yards, rushed for 500, and along with Tay or Jonte Johnson at Whitney, Jordan Smith's probably those two are the best players in the district. Jordan Smith's spectacular sophomore that's getting a lot of attention here lately. Mahia, and I don't know if y'all talked about it on your show, but they're going through a lot. They lost Micah Curvin last week, and it's going to be rough for them. But I like their quarterback, Braden Wilson. He's kind of athletic. He can spin a little bit. And Kyron Bedford's a pretty good little wide receiver for him too.
Well, and that's the thing with Mahia, man. It's just, first off, just been a crappy couple weeks in 3A with players passing away unexpectedly.
Yep.
Columbus lost a player who got sick. 17-year-old, they're going to get sick. You think, okay, he'll be good in a couple days. An infection, it went bad. And then you have a cardiac event like with Micah Curvin. But with Mahia, man, the last 10 years, it just feels like they're always waiting on the other shoe to drop. This is a team that has just, for decades, you look at them and you think, man, when you see Mahia at warm-up, you go, holy crap, nobody will beat them. And then a quarter in, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. And people don't believe me when I'm like, dude, when I was growing up, Mahia was a staple. Like they were a region threat. They won a state championship. I think it was 88 or something like that. They went to 2. Yeah. They went to another state championship. I mean, you always penciled Mahayan in as a third round team, and it was going to take a hellacious effort to beat them. And in the last 15, 20 years, it's been just the exact opposite. And, Aaron Noah done such a job there they didn't, for some reason, I know why. School boards, they wanted to get rid of him. He came back, and it just feels like now they're starting back over. I'm going to go with Groesbeck. I know there's the inspiration side, but man, that's tough, dude. I'm going to go with Groesbeck. And I also just think at the end of the day, I think Groesbeck's a better team, but I think it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Groesbeck's just probably a little bit more fine tuned. They've been really good. Played a really good Troy team to the one score. No, that was Maypearl. I'm sorry. Groesbeck. They lost to Lexington. So
yeah,
Lexington's a state ranked 3A D2 school. No shame in that.
Hey, and they actually played. I mean, they played Lexington closer than anybody else has this year.
Yeah.
We saw Lexington last week against Caldwell. We had to go. By the way, Caldwell's not that bad this year. They'll probably make playoffs in their district.
Oh, really?
But Lexington, man, everybody wants to talk about their quarterback, deserved. Everybody wants to talk about their running back, deserved. But that Lexington defense, man, they're physical. Like they go and they hit you. So Groesbeck staying in the ballpark with them, there's no shame in that.
Let's go Maypearl at West. Man, this is as far as on paper, looks about as evenly matched as you can get. JT Washington from Maypearl, they're a good running back. Blaine Johnson's their quarterback. They got a good wide receiver in Billy T, who's also a really good lefty pitcher for the baseball team. And then West they're young at quarterback. Dub Crane, his brother Gus, was the quarterback last year, so Dub's a sophomore. And they've got a lot of speed in Coy Klish, who's we've said it before, the state qualifier in the 100. They got some depth and some size and some skill on the defensive line in Clander. Man, I don't know. This is kind of a pick 'em for me.
I was, Step does the question of the week for us. Love the dude. I like to poke some fun with him. I was bitching at him on the state shows about some of the rankings and stuff. And I know he's not the only one, but their computer or whatever has this being West as a almost 3 touchdown favorite. I was shocked by that. And I know Maypearl doesn't get a lot of respect in the systems because, when you look at them, I contend that they're average. I mean, they consistently tend to go 7-4. It feels like at least every other year. And I said it when we were talking 5-3 at the beginning of this. I think Maypearl is the team that's the biggest surprise in here. We talked about the beginning of the year. I mean, this is a team that returns 17 starters. JT Washington, Landon Sims, 2 really good skill position players and 2 really good defenders. They have a really good sophomore in Colin Brooks. I think Maypearl. Okay, I'm going to go with West because it's in West, but I think this is way closer than a 17. I think this is like a 32-28 type game.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and I can see giving West the home 3-point advantage, and I can see that. So let's go Whitney at Grandview, which has not been a good place for Whitney. They hadn't won there since 2014. So out of I think 8 games, usually getting curb stomped over there in Johnson County. I just don't. I know Whitney's battling injuries, and I think most of them are going to come back. That they held them out that academy game, and Coach Haynes had told some people, "Hey, if it's district, then some of those guys would probably be starting." So I think they're going to get some of those guys back. Mason Seeley, 3-year starter, battling the ball. They got a pair of wide receivers that are really good, and Kobe Haynes and Caden Tanner at Whitney. Don't know if Tay-Tay's playing or not. I know he was out the second half of the academy game, but they've got a really good backup in Delvion Walter, who went off in that second half. And you look at Grandview, not a whole lot out there. I think the Cleburne paper quits covering them if they're not winning state championships because I can't find a write-up. But they got Elijah Dominguez, who plays on the defensive line, plays running back. They've got some skill kids that can make plays. Mason Landers is their quarterback. They're in here 2-3. They pulled out a win against the new school, Eagle Mountain, which was kind of impressive because they were down early. What do you think? You tell me.
Well, they're like Little River Academy. They got hit with a big transfer that really, I think, probably altered their season. But it's still Grandview, but they're young. For me, If Whitney was 100% healthy, I think Whitney is the one team in this district that could make a decent run in the playoffs, depending on matchups. With the injuries, I don't know, but I still think Whitney wins this game. And I still think Whitney wins this game by 14 points.
I think that's possible, and I've just seen Grandview play so many times that those kids, that's part of a culture and a program over there, and it's kind of like West. Even when you may think they're down, they're still going to get a playoff spot, and they may win one or two, or they may get beat in the first round. But Grandview hadn't been beaten in the first round in a long time. I mean, years and years. Since before, back when Zach Smith was cool. Well, they missed the playoffs one year when he was there. Yeah, I kind of like that. I'm a homer. I'm a Whitney guy, and I would love to see Whitney win by 14 points. I think Whitney wins. I just don't know if I could see it being comfortably, or I could see it being a dogfight.
Well, and you bring up a good point that we try to talk about on our show, but sometimes we do get baked into just numbers and what we see on film. But on all levels, but especially high school, when you can't beat a team, you need to be up 14-0 before the game starts, because you're, in theory, mentally, you're down 14-0. I was part of that, and it's been in another stretch like this again, where Marshall hasn't beat Longview. They upset them about 5 years ago, and they've had one win in 20 years. But when I was growing up through Marshall, before my sophomore year, our freshman year, we hadn't beat Longview in 18 years. And we had that whole run of losing 14-7 because our quarterback falls 2 inches short on a 4th and 1 at the goal line, that if he falls in, we at least go, it's at least a tie, or losing 28-21 because our running back, as we're going in to salt the game away, fumble. You just end up losing in weird ways. And so you do have that point, but I just think Grandview is down so much inside this district. I don't think that comes into play this year, but we'll see.
All right, let's go. Man, this is going to be, I think, Franklin at Troy. Troy's been really, really nice this year. 5-0. They've got some quality wins underneath their belt. Franklin's played some really, really tough competition. Still think Franklin's got the edge in this one, though.
We had a long discussion about this on Sideline to Sideline, like very long. And the funniest thing about, if you listen to Grant and I, is sometimes our biggest arguments aren't if Team A or Team B wins, it's how bad Team A beats Team B. He thinks that Franklin's going to donkey stomp Troy. I think Franklin's going to win comfortably. I trust in the 5-0 Troy Trojans and Tommy Brashear at head coach. And, again, he was a dude that at Cameron Yo kind of got a lot of crap simply because he was on the back end of a talent run that now we see as a talent drain.
Yeah.
Cameron Yo, it happens to the great ones too. All schools, especially at this level, you're just going to have a cycle or two where you just don't have as many great studs. And so he kind of got run out, not run out, but kind of run out. And I've always liked him, and I like what he's doing in Troy. I still think Jaden Jackson at Franklin is just too much. I don't think people talk enough about Noah Tart, the quarterback. It's not like Franklin's going to throw for 300 yards, but Franklin's throwing 12, 13 times a game now. That's something that Franklin doesn't do. I think they're going to out physical Troy. I think Franklin's angry. Franklin, but I also think Mark Fannin loves the fact that everybody's forgot about Franklin. Franklin, in a very stacked 3A Division I, even though they lost to a 4A school and then a legacy school that's basically playing an outlaw schedule, and their IMG with they're openly trying to be IMG. That they're literally called Legacy Sports Science. They're trying to do IMG, but with a better education system and keeping kids in Texas. And I'm all for that. If there's going to be an IMG system, I want it to stay in Texas, so Texas kids will at least stay in Texas. And losing to those two teams, and losing to that one in a 2-point game or something like that, and they drop out of the top 10. I'm sorry, no. Franklin's a top 5 team. Grant says they're a top 3 team. I don't think he's wrong. I think you can make the case in 3A Division I, the 3 top teams in the state are all in Region 3, and 2 of them are in the same district. I think it's Columbus, Franklin, and Hitchcock, and you can play around with that order. So I think Franklin loves that they're not being respected. And I think Mark Fannin that's the message to his team. Like, nobody cares about you. You lost in a state championship game last year. You've lost 2 games already this year. Troy's going to dominate, and just going to get them angry. And I think they're going to win, but I do think Troy's going to show well. I think Troy is the second best team in this district. And I think Troy is a team I don't want to play in the second round of the playoffs.
Absolutely not.
And there's going to be an upset in this region. Somebody's going to pull it off. And it wouldn't shock me if Troy matched up against a Hitchcock and upset them in the second round or the third round of the playoffs. But I do think in this one, Franklin's going to be able to take care of business.
Okay. Well, first, Troy, I like their offense. They've got Jaden Lucky running the football really well now. It's kind of, they didn't have that last year, second year in this Brashear system. Do you think Franklin being down to Salina and Legacy, kind of having to throw the ball, does that kind of impact those passing stats? And 2, does that kind of help Troy get a little, like maybe a roadmap on, what plays work against, a team, Franklin like that, spreading the ball out and throwing it? Because I think Salina does do that type of offense.
Well, yeah, they do. They run the ball. But so the throwing thing, yes and no, because that is something that, talking with Franklin, and I've had a Mark Fannin show the past couple of years, and we'll probably pick him back up in the playoffs because that's when he doesn't really want to talk 15 weeks of the season, but he loves to talk to 6. Yeah. There's been acknowledgement that, hey, they lost to Malakoff because at the end of the day, they weren't throwing well. They beat Brock the year before because it was only one pass, but it was a pass that got them a first down on 4th and 1.
Great
it was, and it was a great call. Even though everybody knew they were going to throw, to still throw the wide receiver screen at that point, and it wasn't like it got 10 yards. It literally got 4, but it was good. But he's acknowledged, and that he feels that Noah Hart's a quarterback that he can trust to throw a little bit more. So yes, but I think that's part of why that was scheduled that way, to put themselves behind so they have to throw. Roadmap, I don't know. That's always a discussion Grant and I'll have on the road when we're just sitting in the truck for 6 hours, or me and Noe, my NFL and college football co-host, we'll talk about that. You can have the road map, but that map doesn't have Jaden Jackson running at your linebackers 35 times a game. Yeah. And that's the difference. It's weird because I think everybody acknowledges how great he is, but then he's so methodical, and also Fannin and Franklin doesn't run him 45 times. So he'll only put up 160 yards, but then you'll go look and it was 10 carries.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so, yeah, you can, but you bring up one thing that I don't think enough people talk about, and this isn't a knock, but it's not like Franklin, even in their state championship runs, or just state championship appearances, they'll give up points in the season. It's the playoffs when that defense starts to kind of lock down. And so Troy's offense, and this is why I think they can make a game of it, Troy's offense can keep them in the game. I just don't think they can stop Franklin enough.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're probably, I don't know, 45, 28, yes. 45, 21, something like that.
Exactly. I think, like I said, Grant thinks that they're going to get donkey stomped. I think it's going to be competitive. Basically, I think it's one of those games that'll be competitive until Troy doesn't score on 2 consecutive drives, and then that's when the game gets lost, because you can't not score on 2 consecutive drives against the Franklin team.
Yep, I agree. Where y'all headed at this week?
We are going to stay local. We're going to go watch Salina and Sulphur Springs, some 4A D1 ball. Sulphur Springs has surprised everybody. This is their 3rd year down in 4A. They made the playoffs the last 2 years, but they were, good, not great teams. This year, they're 5-0. They're loaded. They're big. They got an offensive line that might be bigger than Salina's, and Salina has, in my opinion, the best offensive line in 4A Division I. So we're going out to East Texas for that slobber knocker.
How was that Ruston team look? I saw the final. I didn't get to watch any of it, but they look pretty salty.
Stephenville will probably win their region. Stephenville might win their region with no issues. They might win every playoff game for the first 4 by 3-4 touchdowns. Stephenville looked like a 2A school going up against a small college school. Ruston is absolutely loaded, dude.
Really?
They will compete for a state championship in 5A, and I'll even say I think they would compete for a state championship in 6A.
That's impressive. I don't. What time do they kick off? Because I think I was going to keep up with it. By the time I got over there, it was over.
Yeah, it was 2 p.m. game.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they played. It was a little warm, but it's still kind of getting that playoff football. That's the one thing I hate. I hate about how the coaches line up their state championship days where they want to play on the same day that they play the state game, because we've lost a lot of 4A and 3A Saturday games that were always a blast.
Yeah.
Saturday playoff football is my favorite playoff. That's why we like Friday after Thanksgiving, because so many teams play during the day on Friday after Thanksgiving, and you'll get that 1 week where you'll get a bunch of 3As and 4As playing on Friday afternoon. And then some of them will play on Saturday that week just because they want at least one day between Thanksgiving. Now, you get teams like Salina, and they want to play on Thanksgiving. I wish more teams in Texas did that. That's a real big thing in the Northeast for their playoffs, is they play it on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's cool. I've been to a couple. I went to Salina and I can't remember who it was now. It might have been Pilot Point. I can't remember, but I went to Salina one way in the early 2000s on Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving night, and dude, it was just, I don't know, it was just something about that experience. But yeah, so we're gonna go see Salina and Sulphur Springs, and Stephenville's gonna be fine. But yeah, Ruston, Stephenville knew going in what that game was gonna be.
Yeah. Any good food this last weekend? Didn't y'all stay? You went to Lexington, stayed in Rockdale, then headed out east.
Yeah, we ate at we had a great burger. I've always said this: best burgers in Texas are going to be in gas stations, and it was I can't believe it, Herc's or something like that in Lexington. Great burger, and then Saturday we just were kind of, dude, we left at half. It was a arse kicking.
Oh, really?
We weren't really, usually the second day, unless it's the Thanksgiving weekend. That's our big 3-day trip. Usually the second day, if we're going to another game, we're just eating somewhere, just to get food and go.
Gotcha.
All right. Is that it?
All right, man. Safe travels this weekend.
Heck yeah. Hey, tell everybody how to find you on Facebook and Twitter.
Go to Central Texas Football Podcast on Twitter and Central Texas Football Podcast on Facebook. You can leave us a message there. Don't really have much of an email presence on that. Just leave us a Twitter or Facebook message. We'll get back to you.
All right. Well, we're going to set you up with an email here soon. I just got to remember.
I think Ryan has me one. I need to find it. Go my email or my text messages.
That carpetbagger moving to Arkansas for a job. Stupid.
I think he'll be back pretty soon.
All right. That's going to do it for this week. Again, we want to thank, let me get that back up there. We want to, why is it being so slow tonight? We want to thank Ranch Masters Ranch and Home Realty over there in Lake Whitney, Texas. You can find them online at ranchmasters.com. Until next time, he's Kenny, I'm Terry, and this has been the Central Texas Football Podcast on L4.